alongside
Big B Jones.
Wagwan. How you feeling, man?
Feel good, man. We're in a new location, if y'all can't tell.
Man, feeling good, feeling great, huh?
Yeah, so we'll catch y'all up. New house. We're in the basement this time. Yeah, man. We're down the street from the old house, but you know, more square footage and more a little bit of everything. So this has definitely been a blessing. And you know all about it. I talked to you about it. I haven't talked to the people about it.
Right.
So we've been looking. I don't know. I know we talked about the house stuff before. I don't know what I said before. So yeah, basically between moving between two houses, like we, you know, and still like, you know, working and doing all that kind of stuff. We took a bunch of weeks off from the pod. Just now got everything set up here. So I don't remember what we talked about before about this house situation, but I'm gonna go ahead and just talk about it, man. So we finally moved in officially a couple of weeks ago. Unboxing a bunch of stuff. Still got boxes everywhere. Not everywhere, but in a few different parts of the house. We have a few boxes left. But I would say we're good and settled in right now. So this has definitely we've been in a blessing season.
Yes.
In our life, right? So me and Xanta, we were trying to move. We're looking in Alpharetta, Johns Creek area. I'll give y'all the short version.
Metro Atlanta.
Right? And so we live in Lilburn. And when we told the kids, when it started to settle on, then that we were going to move, and my oldest daughter, who had already started middle school, she started freaking out because she was going to miss her friends, started crying and stuff. And I'm not a sappy dude, except for like in certain situations, and that was one of those situations where
she hit you with the 2-piece and the biscuit.
Yeah. She was really like freaking out because we were also talking about, you know, homeschooling too and exploring that, and we were on the cusp of like just going ahead and greenlighting that for several reasons, but she really, just the combination of those two things, like she just kind of freaked out, and so I got really upset, and then I started looking in my realtor.com. I already had the parameters set up of like the houses we're looking for.
Right.
I just put in the school system, the middle school that she's already in, and like only one house popped up. And so, and it was this house. So this house was sitting on the market 81 days. It was a beautiful house. 81 days. And I saw it, I looked at it, I looked through the pictures, and I was like, not expecting to see anything in this area that we liked. And then also knowing that we really had our heart set on moving, you know, across town. So in my heart, I just knew like it wasn't going to work. And I was just looking just to look, just because my heart was telling me, well, at least try, right? So I was looking,
doing your due diligence.
Doing my due diligence. So and I saw the house. And I looked through the pictures. I was like, So I looked through it again. I was like, yo, this is like a really nice house. Looking at these pictures, I'm reading the descriptions. I'm like, I looked through it like a third time. And I was like, yo, this looks, on the surface, looks like everything that we've wanted in the house. Like it was really strange. Like, so I shot it to Xanta to look at it. She didn't want to hear it. It's like she was already upset. Like
her mind was already made up.
Right,
Somewhere else.
Living in Lilburn. I don't care if Malia's crying. And so she looked at, I just told her, so we had an appointment to go see these other two houses. Now honestly, like where these other two houses were, it wasn't like in the school district that we wanted to be in. So really looking back on it, I felt like we were kind of settling because we were, you know, the pressure of like, we wanted to get everything done before the new school year starts, right? And so I don't think neither one of us was like that excited about these two houses. They were nice houses. Your microphone is sagging. We gotta tighten that up.
Yeah. I just saw it like kind of drip a little bit.
All right. We're gonna I'm gonna edit this part out. So, and I'm not expecting Xanta to even consider the house, but I was just like, well, listen, we got an appointment. This is like a couple of like, I don't know, it's like a Wednesday or a Tuesday. Appointments for Saturday to see these other two houses. So I said, hey, let's just go look at this house. It's right down. It's literally 4 minutes away from where we live. It's crazy. And so I was like, let's just go look at it. If you don't like it, I won't bring it up again.
Right.
Right. So the next day, she's like, yeah, I looked through the pictures. It's actually a nice house. I'm like, yeah, it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the next day, she's like, I really like that house. I was like, what? It's like, yeah. And so it was like and it's like the most random picture that she saw to let her know, like, oh no, this house is a real deal. It was the guest bedroom. Just the guest bedroom, right? Out of all the rooms.
But that was the one that actually made the light bulb go off for her.
Right. Because it was like, because we like tall ceilings. And so like, she saw like, it showed like, the door. And then the window next to it was even bigger than higher than the door. And the ceiling was still like way up there, right? It's like 10-foot ceilings.
Like,
right.
these are those moments you got ideas of things you can do with.
So she was looking through it. She was like, oh, I really like this house. So I was like, wow, okay. Like, God, what are you doing? Like, what is going on right now? So this house, literally, Isak, has everything that we ever wanted.
Man.
Everything. Even stuff that she wanted that I didn't necessarily care for or want.
Right.
Like, this house had both of those. So, like,
man.
Here's an example of that. She wanted something ideally she wanted something with some land on it.
Okay. Yeah.
I didn't want that because that means the houses are going to be spread apart more. I still wanted to be in a neighborhood.
Right.
I didn't want to be like on the street because it's kind of, for me, it's kind of lonely.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I see that.
I like community. And so like, but also I didn't want to be in a neighborhood where the houses were so far from each other. Like, cause my kids are still young. Like in the old neighborhood, I could stick my head out the door and like yell.
Right. And
or I can have a line of sight to like when they're playing like 2 or 3 doors down.
Right.
And so this house the houses are set about the same length apart as our old neighborhood. Not too much different, maybe like a little bit more space, but it's still like a regular neighborhood.
Yeah.
But then we're also sitting on 3.5 acres.
It's definitely got that. You got that trunk, that's for sure, because it goes out. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
So we're kind of like in the cul-de-sac, and then like the backyard goes way out like that. And so it's 3.5 acres. And then some of the other things that we wanted, but like we're way too lofty. So it wasn't even like we were going to pray for that. It was just like way. So 2 examples of that was like, we saw like houses on the Chattahoochee River, and like those are like dope. Like any type of river lot, it's gonna be super expensive, but like and also rare,
correct,
to find. And so this is sitting on the Yellow River. It's the back border of our backyard. So there's a bunch of trees. We haven't been back there yet because there's still a bunch of trees.
Man, you got riverfront property, dog.
We got a riverfront property, and we got a pool. And it's a saltwater pool. We didn't even know that until we did the inspection. That's what we wanted. We wanted a saltwater pool because it's better for like skin and hair. Especially with like black kids, you know what I'm saying, with hair and stuff. So they didn't even, usually you list it's a saltwater pool. That's like an upgrade.
Right.
Those are typically more expensive pools, even though they're cheaper to maintain because you're not doing all the chemical stuff. But we found out during the inspection because like the system needed some work.
Okay.
And it's a saltwater system. It's like, so, you know what I'm saying? Like, cause you can convert a chlorine pool to salt water, it's going to cost you some money.
Right.
But the fact that it's already,
there.
It's already there.
Man, look.
So there's that, and here's the other crazy thing. So the river thing was like not even something we were praying for, because it's like that's not really the houses we've seen that were on the river, like way up there. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So another thing I saw, and I was talking to homie Doc the other day, and I was telling him, like, dude, I have a car lift I have a detached, so I have a 2-car garage attached to the house. I have a separate detached garage that has 2-car, and one of the doors is like really big as RV door, and then in there you have the car lift. So I saw a couple of years ago when we first started looking, I was just looking at houses. Sometimes I just look at stuff way out of our price range, 'cause I like looking at nice stuff. And this one house had like a car lift, and it's like one of the kind that you roll a car on it, you lift it up, and you could park another car under. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool, like, because I just like bought my tools, my power tools from my wood shop or whatever. It's like, that'd be cool. I could build a table on top of that, and then just like whenever I don't need the table, I could just lift it out the way. It was just something I was just daydreaming about, whatever. It wasn't anything I was serious about.
I mean, but that sounds kind of dope. Like, now, when you say it like that, I never even thought about it.
Right. And then God was like, well, here's a house with a car lift. So when we came to see the house, so for one, when we got to the house, the house was as big as the pictures. Usually, like, the pictures online look a lot bigger when you get there, because the camera lenses they use, it's all part of the real estate process or whatever. Now, this house looked as big as the pictures, and then we only got through like half of the main floor, and we told our agent, like, put an offer on it right now. Like, full asking price, just put the offer on it. Right. So we went through the whole house. We loved it.
Before you even made it through the house.
Before we made it through the house, we were like 25% through the house. And so, yeah, man, it's the deck, multiple decks, gazebo, basement, master on main, which is what I wanted. And I also wanted a guest bedroom on the main for like my dad come to visit, or somebody, can't really do stairs like that. And it's just, it had all this stuff, man. And so when we went to the detached garage, like, I had a sign on it that said not for sale. It's not like I really wanted it. Like, I wasn't going to pay money for it. You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, that was cool. It's one of those things like, oh, that's dope. But just to have that garage space, it's all I really care about. So the guy, the seller told us, because he couldn't find a buyer for it, he was trying to sell it
independently.
Yeah. And so
independent from the house.
First he asked for like an extension, because he was going to see if he can just extend the days out, because we would have, taken official possession of the house. Right. But he still we were like, yeah, that's cool, man. You can still try to sell it. And then at the closing table, he was like, a guy was going to charge him. He said it's worth $4,000. But he said a guy, he couldn't find out anywhere to sell it. So a guy, he was gonna pay a guy to move it, and the guy was gonna charge him $4,000 to move it. So I was sitting there like, huh. I was just thinking, like, he had walked out the room, because we were like kind of near we were actually at the end. We were done with all the signing, and all that stuff. We were done. And so I walked up to him and was like, hey, you want to save $4,000 and just leave it? He was like, cool, yeah. So I got a few
ask questions. Just say thank you.
Right.
Bruh.
It was just something I seen like years ago. And I was like, oh, that's dope. I didn't ask God for that. He was just like, you know what?
But he was still taking notes.
He was taking notes, like, there you go. So, yeah, man, it's
exceedingly and abundantly, huh?
Bro, like I said, we've been here a couple of years, like a couple of weeks, and it still feels like surreal. You know what I'm saying? So,
what is that? Jeremiah 29:10.
All things work out.
No, that's I have the plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you hope in the future.
I'm a Bible scholar, y'all. Y'all could tell. Yeah, so it still feels unreal. Like, I'm just thankful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
man.
It just
look when it lines up like that. Man, I've been saying this for a little while now. I keep saying I'm gonna get the tattoo, but man, the confirmation over coincidence, man. When both of your minds being made up to not be in this area anymore, right? So the fact that you even took it into consideration to even look, right? That idea would have been shot down just because of the situation, because you've already been looking elsewhere. You know, the mindset was already to go, right?
Yeah.
But and man, it's a kind of a good segue, man. But keeping God first in your life, man, like you're able to live in that space and in that place where you can recognize the right moves to make to be able to walk things out in God's will and for it to line up with the things that it is that you want in your heart. And I think that comes from working at it. It comes from being diligent. It comes from keeping God first in most areas. So many times this world is set up to keep your mindset away from Christ, period. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like it's just set up that way.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times there are opportunities that we run across that would put us in position of power. But because we're not keeping God first, we might not be able to see the opportunities that are presenting themselves because we're focused on this thing, we're focused on that thing, and we're focused on the third thing.
Yeah.
But when you're able to, or not able to, but when you're actively pursuing Christ, when you are actually seeking first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you, right? This is a prime example of that, because you listen to the Spirit inside of you say, look at this house, where somebody else might have, or even you at a previous time in your walk would have just pushed it down because my wife's already said she wants to move over here, because I've already made my mind up that this is what's going to happen, right? And so you would have never even explored that option.
Right.
You would have maybe tried to have a conversation with Malia to talk to her about, the difference of change, et cetera, right? But instead, the Spirit moved you to do one thing. And all of these, and not just you, right? Same thing with Xanta. She could have not even looked. She could have seen Lilburn, saw the address, and was like, look, we've already talked about this.
Yeah.
It's not going to be here, right? Yeah. But instead, her spirit was open to even looking at it before anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, sometimes we look for God to be beating us over the head. We look for like this big booming voice to come out. But so often it's stuff like that. It's being able to be receptive to what the Spirit is trying to tell you to do in the moment. And I don't think that you can get to that place by sometimes, quote unquote, luck happens. You know what I'm saying? The sun shines on the dogs, whatever that's saying, whatever it's in the Bible, like when the sun shines for the, what is it saying? Like for the something and the dog alike or something like that. Basically saying that like.
It's for the rain. The rain pours on.
There you go.
The wicked and the righteous alike.
There you go.
Yeah.
So long story short, some things are going to happen that look like blessings regardless. But when you are diligent and when you're actively seeking, man, it's just more abundant and it's more obvious of what's going on.
So how I think all this really got started? We went through like a lot of disappointment. If you ever like try to like buy a house, it's so much, it's so involved and there's so many moving parts. There's definitely going to be a lot of, or there can be a lot of disappointment in that, like you see a house you like and you're like, oh, let's go see this. And like you get there, it's not what you thought it was going to be. Or you see a house that you like and somebody else puts under contract before you. And that's the one you've been praying on. And whatever, that's happened to us like plenty of times. And so we got kind of beat down from the process. It was a 3-year process. So, but we had got to the point where we were truly like, Lord, okay, this is what we want. But Lord, if this is not what you want, like close the door. Because it's such a huge deal, like, and it's a lot of money, right? We didn't want to mess that up.
Right.
And be in a situation that, we thought was going to be a blessing and ended up being a curse, right? So we were like, God, if we try to make a move on anything, but it's not what you want us to do, because me and Xanta, we don't normally like hear like the audible voice of God like that, but it's like, we do have faith in things not working out because, because humans, we're used to that happening. So we're like, Lord, close the door and don't make sure we can't walk through it so we don't make a mistake.
Right.
And so when he started doing that, he started making like really obvious. Like he will wait till like we call our agent, and then our agent would be like, oh, it just started. It got pending today or a couple hours ago. And that happened like several times
throughout the process.
Yeah, it was like not even the same type of houses. It'll be like one house that they did a whole lot of work. So it's like these two houses, like for an example, these two houses in the same neighborhood. One house needed a bunch of work. The other one was straight. It didn't need as much. So we were like two different prices. Like they're like 100,000 apart. We were going to go look at both of them. They both went pending at the same time. You know what I'm saying? It's like stuff like that usually doesn't happen. So whenever a door closed, and even though like initially we kind of like, ouch, we was like, yo, thank you, Lord. Like that wasn't for us. And we meant it in our hearts. And so it was really, and even if we asked God, like, Lord, even if we really want to move, but if you want us to stay in this house, like, we'll stay.
So how do you get to the place where you're comfortable to allow your heart's desire to take over in the situations?
What do you mean? How do you get to a place where you're comfortable? Comfortable doing what?
Where you can still praise God for finding the house or for the removal of the house that you want. That's question number one. And then question number two is, how did you get to a place where you started even getting to that spot where you could say, Lord, close the door for us if it's not what you want? Because so many times with people, myself, I'll jump into a situation, and then ask God to bless it after the fact. You know what I mean? We'll see something that we want and we go after the thing that we want because we're kind of programmed, right? That we need to go after what we want, Don't take no for an answer. You can name it and claim it. And those things are true, right? But I believe that there's a portion of needing to hear from the Lord before we make moves and or ask first before we just go. It's almost like walking around blindfolded, like hey, I got my blindfold on, but I see this thing that I want. That thing that I want might not actually be for me. So how do you change from the mindset of let me just go after it, get it, and then I put myself in a situation. Now I'm asking the Lord to bless it, but this was never what was for me to begin with. Then you're basically asking the Lord to play clean up and then to reposition you. Sounds like you kind of got ahead of that curve.
Yeah, so we got there through maturity, but we got to the maturity through, for one, trials, and two, for me personally, was reading my Bible more, which you started with me, you know what I'm saying? So being like, when you're looking at the Israelites, you start to see a theme like, do what God tells you to do and your life will go good. Do your own thing and your life will go bad. It's like example after example after example. And so like, so the Bible also says faith comes by hearing and hearing the word of God. So you start to build yourself up and build your faith up the more you read and the more you realize, like, it just kind of opens your eyes to the fact that whether something goes, exactly to plan, like, do you really want to exclude God from that? Even though this is something that you really, really want for yourself, God's plan for you is always going to be the best, even if it doesn't seem like it. So even when things, just like you said, like, or the verse I was referencing, all things work out for the good of those who love the Lord. So
like Romans 8:28.
Yeah, 8:28. So when things look like they're going bad and you're a child of God, like, that thing is really for you. So we go through valleys because the valleys is what we need to mature us. Like when you're married and you're fighting, like those arguments and those fights, and being able to depend on God to like help you to not be selfish or help you to not seek revenge or to not help you to forgive. And when you win those battles, it makes your marriage stronger.
Correct.
So realizing that, I was really like, you know what? Lord, make your request known to God. That's scriptural. So
That is.
ask, you shall receive.
Yep.
But we want to make sure that, Lord, like, but not my will,
Your will be done.
your will be done.
Mm-hmm.
So seeking his kingdom first, seeking the things of God before the things of me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So what if it's God's will for us to stay in the neighborhood? Is my wants more important than what God wants? No.
Right.
So it's just really just stop being a child.
Mm.
Those are the things your kids do. We do in the parallels,
That's
like
real. That's
you know what I'm saying? So it's I find myself doing a lot of things that my kids do.
okay.
And my kids are right now range from ages 6 to 12. And so like sometimes as adults, our attitudes can be a 6 through 12-year-old
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to
Definitely.
the things of God. So like God opening my eyes and helping me realize in certain situations, like you're acting like a child right now.
It's time to grow up.
It's time to grow up. So it's just, and I didn't want to, and so let me tell you, so the end result of putting God first and prioritizing what God wants in your life. So now that he blessed us with this unexpected blessing,
Mm-hmm.
and out of all the houses we looked at, like even like some of the houses that we thought was going to be our dream home, like this house was better than those houses, right? And so now when you're in a situation like that, and so like right now we're trying to get the pool fixed. We haven't
Yes.
been able to swim in the pool yet.
Okay.
We don't have to stress out about it
Right.
because this was a gift from God. We know
That
it's
was just a bonus.
right.
That's
You know what I'm saying? But it's like, you know, one of the like the HVAC system for the basement is going to need to get replaced pretty soon.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like all these things, like we don't have to stress out about it because God ordained this whole thing because we put him first. So like we know that he's going to help us to like, you know, pay for this and fix that and do all that. So we don't, so now that we're already in this blessing, and on top of that, we don't have to stress out about the blessing.
Right.
You know
So
what I'm saying?
it sounds like you've gotten to a place where you've experienced and you're literally living it right now, experiencing the Lord taking care of you. Just like you mentioned a little while ago, it's like the Old Testament, where if you listen to what the Lord's telling you, you end up in a good spot. But then also, if you go to where the Lord tells you to go, right? The Lord told Abraham to go to this place. He told Moses to go to this place. He told Noah, gave instructions on what to do. And it wasn't necessarily 100% of what it was going to end up being when they got there, but he directed them to there. And then it became what it was that he said that it was going to be from the beginning, right? And it sounds like what you're saying, you were directed here, right? And you noticed and were able to recognize, Lord, that this is you. There's no way I'm in everything I could have possibly, even the stuff that I didn't remember that I wanted, you reminded me that I wanted by having it here, right?
Yeah.
So when you get to that place, it's like, all right, it's almost like, well, you gave me manna before, you know what I'm saying? Now I'm in milk and honey, so I know we're going to be good, regardless of if that over there is not right or if this over here is not right. Like, I know that we're good,
Yeah.
you know? And that's what it sounds like what you're saying. Like, you know, like you see it, and because of how God's moving, it removes the doubt from you at this point. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And then even, you know, before that, just like us making a decision to do our finances God's way. That started like a couple of months after like me and Xanta started dating. So
Yep. I remember that. That was a
right.
very encouraging time.
Yeah. And so it's encouraging. It's also discouraging time for us because like when you're dealing with money and you're living, you know, a certain way, budgeting, for one, it's not fun when you're doing it, especially when you start doing it because you're not used to doing it. Then two, when you're sharing that with other people, sometimes it may not get received well from others and make people uncomfortable. And sometimes you get made fun. I remember, shout out to my boy Carson, man. We was, were you there? Okay, this was years ago. We were hanging out. My homeboy Carson, from college. He was living, I think, downtown at the time. I remember Doc was there. That's why I'm calling out names. I think Brian, Steve was there. We was hanging out for whatever reason, and we was talking. And I was like, I don't know, tell them about my budget. So like my my lunch budget, I might have been working at Infinity at the time. Like my lunch budget was like $25 a month, right? Meaning like that's just like if I go get something to eat, like at a restaurant or fast food or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So most of the time I was making my lunch from home, sandwiches, chips, you know what I'm saying? And then like when I told him that, like everybody bust out laughing, was like laughing at me like $25 a month. I spend $25 a day on lunch, you know what I'm saying? And so, you know, you run into those situations, but just, you know, when you're doing the hard things in the beginning and you stay consistent with it, and you're going to make mistakes, of course, but like for the most part over the years, like we developed a rhythm of how we're going to handle our finances and do it like, you know, from the biblical, like financial teaching that we got from church. You know, Dave Ramsey is kind of where we started with financial peace, and then getting out of debt and paying off our credit cards, paying off our cars, paying off our student loans, and then eventually paying our house off, our last house, like put us in a position where we could be in our dream home now. So a lot of the small decisions that you make to do some of the hard things, and I think Myron Golden said this, like one of the most important like skills you can learn is to delay gratification. You can learn to delay gratification. That can be like one of the biggest like boosts you can have in your life, you know what I'm saying, to get you where you're going. So yeah, we just learned to, you know, then after a while it's not as hard because it's normal, you know what I'm saying? But so yeah, just, you know, to answer your question, just maturing, reading the word, and realizing that God's plan is better than your plan, no matter how your plan looks. So we're more concerned with, like, God, where do you want us? But we had to be broken first
to get there.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you allow God to break you a little bit and just continue to trust him and get in his word, like know what he says, like know his heart for you. You know what I'm saying? So that's how we did it.
Man, it was said, I think it's Myron Golden that said, we are 100% of who we can be right now, but the person that we want to be, we can still grow to be that person, right? But right now, in this capacity, right this second, I, Ishaq Assad, have maxed out what I can do in this particular skin, in this particular moment. Because if I could be doing more, I would be doing more. But I'm growing to being more. And so I thought that was very impactful, because sometimes we can play the competition game, the keeping up with the Joneses, and then running somebody else's race as opposed to our own race.
Yeah.
And we can get discouraged. We can get, downtrodden and all these kind of things when we look across the aisles. But making the decision to be diligent, I guess, or to be responsible with our money, and man, tithing, bro. I'm just gonna stop beating around the bush.
Talk about it.
Like, I've been in church my entire life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've always known, quote unquote, that tithing was the right answer.
For sure.
And I thought that I understood the principles of it, but I never really lived like I did. I was just making offerings at time to time, but I wasn't living like a tithing life at all.
Okay.
I would put money in the basket. You know what I mean? But it was whatever
you had.
Whatever I felt like. Okay, yeah, $10 this time. You know what I'm saying? Oh, $5. Whatever it was.
Right.
But man, going through and experiencing a lot of the struggles that I've experienced over the years, from repossessions to moving from place to place because I wasn't financially situated to take on the responsibility as rent went up the next year, et cetera, et cetera. Going back to my mom's house. And I mean, I think it was talking to you, talking to my Annalise, my Uncle Cornell. Actually, my Uncle Cornell, he's like, if you're tired of playing these games, then you can stop playing these games and you can get, your life in order. But it's going to be tithing. He said, otherwise, if you don't take it seriously, then you'll always be stuck in this cycle.
That's real love right there.
Man, bruh. And like, I'm thinking,
straight like that. Like,
Because in my mind, I'm like, look, I'm getting, this job I'm just paying more than that job did, and this job's paying more than that job did, and still ending up in the same spot. And so it got to a place where I realized it's not the dollar amount, it's a me thing, it's a me problem. It wasn't the how much I was making. It was, what are you doing with how are you using what you're getting? And man, to make that change and to actually start tithing, to enforce it in my house, to talk to my wife about it, and make sure that was what we were both on. It was like an immediate trajectory change from like staying here to slowly but surely going up. You know what I mean?
okay, so let me kind of ask the similar question you asked me before. Like, so what happened to get you from that mindset where you're just kind of like doing it when you felt like doing it to like, okay, yo, this is a mandate in the Assad household now?
It was really the need that like I was looking at. So, we've been dealing with this custody case for a while, and that's a very big bill. The lawyer, looking at everything else, and plus the job switching that I was dealing with at the time, really just had me at a place where it's like, Lord, if something doesn't change, then I don't know what's going to happen. And it was basically out of a place of desperation, where it's like, all right, I've been actively doing this for a very long time, and it's been failing.
Right.
You know what I mean?
You got plenty of examples of why this does not work.
Plenty of examples. And so it was just like, either put up or shut up. And it was, I talked to Nadia about it, and she was like, look, okay. Because really, man, we got into it once, because I'm just going to have to be transparent right here. I had talked about tithing, and I was giving my wife money because she handles the bills. Like I'm bringing the money in, and hey, put it here, put it there. She's really good at budgeting. She's really good at, spreadsheets and everything else, getting stuff together like that. And I put it out there like, hey, we're going to have to be tithing, blah, blah, blah. Things got a little bit tight, the job situation. And she started taking money from the tithe to pay and put other places. I had no idea, And so I thought this whole time that we'd been continuing to tithe and everything was still going straight. But the pressure at the house started to build up, And I'm asking the Lord, like, what's the deal? You know what I'm saying? I'm finally starting to do the thing I'm believing that I was supposed to be doing. And things aren't really going the way that I was hoping that they would, but maybe it's just a test, maybe it's just a trial, you know what I'm saying? So There's no word saying that you're not going to experience that at some point. So I'm just like, all right, we're going to keep rocking with it. But then when I found out that she wasn't tithing anymore, or not as consistently at all, man, that was a very difficult conversation, because I was very angry. You know what I mean? So I felt like there was a trust breakdown. She was looking at it from one standpoint, like, hey, I'm, moving things to make sure it's taken care of. I was looking at it like, I told you to do something with my bread and you're not doing it, And so we kind of clashed. But after that clash, she was able to be submissive and actually listen to what it was I was saying,
Yeah.
And she came back and apologized for it. Was like, look, you know what, you're right. If we're walking this thing out by faith, I can't just see everything. And her coming back to me and actually trusting the process and allowing me to, to dictate that in our household, to actually be the leader in that regard, was really huge. It gave me a huge boost, because it was something that we were bumping heads on.
Right.
But once that got smoothed out, man, from that point forward, once we stopped and she started tithing again, it's gotten a little bit thin on the home front. But man, refrigerator's been full, the bills have been paid. You know what I'm saying? We've got another new car. The car issues haven't been the same as they were. Just like the business started to grow. You know what I mean? And it literally started with just being consistent with tithing. It was like, as soon as that happened, The next thing you know, it's like somebody was dropping off a check randomly. Like, where'd that come from? Oh, okay. Oh, I just felt like blessing you guys, blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Just little stuff,
Right.
But it was like a night and day difference. And as I saw that happening, it's like I actually had to talk with the wife, like, yo, do you realize that, like, we haven't, had to pay late fees for the rent. We haven't had to do this. We haven't had to do that. We've been straight, And like I said, there's been some stuff that we haven't done. Oh, maybe we should not going to go on this vacation this time. We're not going to, you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
But man, look, so now I finally saw it actively happening in my life. I saw it in your life, the discipline that you exercised, and that was a real deal. I see it in other people's lives. But in my head, once upon a time, I was just like, yeah, they're making enough money to do that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And man, that's really not what it's about.
Yeah.
And then once we started doing that, then I got another raise. It's like, okay, well, I was tired. And then it was, then I got the courier job. And then that was way more money than I had been getting before, And then it was something else. And then it was like, so here we are, man. It's just like a living testimony to that part. But I just feel like put your money where your mouth is. So many times we say that we trust the Lord. So many times we say that we got God first. Yeah, God's number one in my life. But man, I'm just gonna speak for myself, because I can't chastise anybody else. You're doing what you're doing, whatever it is. But that's saying where the majority of your time goes. The majority of your time is spent doing thing A, B, or C. And if that thing is not including the Lord, if it's not focused on the Lord, or if it's not at least introducing the Lord into whatever it is you're doing in some capacity. For me, it was YouTube and Instagram. I could get caught up, just look at something, and then next thing you know, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours going by.
Right.
And if I look at the little thing, there's some of these phones you can track your time or whatever. Mm-hmm. Man, I would look at my weekly time and have like 19 hours of YouTube or something. You know what I mean? Like, this is a part-time job. This is almost like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
23 hours of looking. It's like, how can you have 20-something hours on a social media app?
Getting nothing from it.
Getting nothing from it,
Yeah.
So
that's real.
So I had to start doing, and also the other thing, like sports, a lot of fellas, what I'm saying? I'm doing a fantasy basketball for ladies too, fantasy football. Okay, I'm researching players, I'm watching Sports Center, I'm watching this show, I'm watching that show, I'm listening to it. Before you know it, man, I spent 3 or 4 or 5 hours a day, especially if I'm at work, I can have headphones doing whatever it is, I'm talking, I'm not like at a call center somewhere where I have to be focused on one thing or another, so I'm just feeding that. I could tell you everybody's stats from this weekend. I can tell you this, I can tell you that. Meanwhile, I never read the Bible. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. When people are talking to me about this in this chapter and this and that book, I didn't even know that was a book. What do you mean? That's, so
yeah.
And I've been in church my whole life, and they have like some of those books that I still, I know that Habakkuk is in there. I don't know what it's about. You know what I'm saying? I'm not there yet.
Nahum. You ever read Nahum?
No, not yet.
Nobody's read Nahum.
But,
sorry, Nahum.
So yeah, man. So I really just encourage everybody to really take an analysis. We started this podcast because of where we're trying to grow to, and the realization and the understanding that we're not the only people out here that's found ourselves with or without a career, in or not in the place that we particularly want to be, but still trying to get to the place that we are hopeful for, and it's going to require some things to be changed. It's going to require some things to be a little bit more difficult, a little bit more uneasy. It's going to require getting outside of that comfort zone, and it's going to take a little bit of a sacrifice, and that's sacrificing some of the things that are what we consider to be the most important to us, or our favorites, quote unquote, things. Food shows or whatever it is. Doesn't even have to be TV or something else. It can just be anything, Some people are obsessed with work. Some people are obsessed with their relationships. I'm a firm believer. I heard the triangle method a long time ago, where the guy is here, the lady's here, and God is up here. And as long as we keep trying to get closer and closer to the other person, we're still staying equally as far away from God. But if we are both seeking first the kingdom, right? If we're both going towards God, we're also closing the gap in the distance between us. You know what I'm saying? I heard Johnson say that several years ago, and that really blew my mind. But again, it's about what are we keeping? Some people, it's their kids, Wake up, it's the baby. Wake up, get the baby to school, get, home. you're infatuated and you're enraptured with, and that's great. You're supposed to be. Your family is supposed to be, up there with you. But at the end of the day, I think that we replace God with so many things. So many things in today's society become our idols. It could be food, it can be entertainment, mindset, education, and even religion, but not necessarily in the right way. We get caught up with the traditions of this, and not actual genuine relationships. And so I just want to encourage people to take a look at yourselves, take a look at what it is that you're doing, take a look at how you could slowly but surely implement more things. People say, oh, well, yeah, I wake up and I read the Bible. This was me. Like, I wake up and I read the Bible. And the thing that really had to switch was I had to get out of like a checklist mindset, because then I was just like justified in whatever it was I did. It was like, okay, I was rushing to finish my checklist. Okay, I read the Bible this morning. I read that one verse this morning. Okay, cool. Maybe I'll listen to a short or listen to something for 10 minutes. Okay, cool. Like, okay, I did that. Okay. And I would feel good about it and that's a huge plus. Those are good things to do. So don't get that wrong. But that should be like a starting point. That shouldn't be the finish line for our relationships and for our walk with Christ. That's thing number one. Thing number two is, how do you go about doing that, right? How do you actually keep God first and more involved? And I think that's where things could be a little bit more difficult, because sometimes it's hard to just read the Bible all day. Sometimes it's hard to pray, or to remember to. And so one of the things that I really want to challenge anybody out there that's listening is to get plugged in somewhere. Find a church home, and not just go to the church, but actually plug in and do something a little bit different. Talk to somebody that you might not have known yesterday or last Sunday. See how it is that you can get in and actually be of service, because we're all called to serve. We're all called to be doing a little bit more.
Absolutely.
And the more that we're involved with each other, the more that we go from just being a Sunday to Sunday participant, the easier it is for us to hear from the Lord, and the easier it is for us to keep God first. And so getting involved with small group is really one of the things that catapulted, what it was that we were doing on my home front.
Right.
Getting involved with the Thursday ministries. I haven't done that in quite some time now. I actually want to get back to it. I'm spread a little bit thin. But the Thursday ministries down at the homeless shelter in Atlanta really started to help my mindset, because now I was not just going, all week without doing something else. I was plugging in just a little bit, here and there. And now we've got the podcast, and I'm also doing the other thing with my church, the co-moderator. And so now there's something that's every day, and it's a lot easier for me to pay attention to what the Lord is doing in my life, and also for me to be engaged in what I want and how to do the best that I can for the glory of the Lord also, Now I'm actually looking up notes and digging into information to see how we can talk about this, Monday, and how we can talk about it on Wednesday. I'm looking at the previous sermon from Sunday so I can go back and make sure I'm refreshed and talking about it on Wednesday. And the more you get plugged into those things, the more the Lord will reveal into your life and grow your relationship. So that's what I think is really, really clutch is plugging in.
Luckily, we serve a God that loves us and wants the best for us.
And what are some things that you struggle with? What are some questions that you might have? What are some hurdles that either you've overcome that we may have missed, or that might be encouraging to somebody else? And what are some pointers and some things that have helped you along the way? So definitely share that. Give us some feedback on some other things, because there's one thing that we're trying to be engaging. It's not just us talking to each other. We're engaging with you as well. So give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. Questions, comments, concerns. We can address those things. Bring them up on the pod. Because I'm sure that you have questions, and I'm sure that you have answers as well. Yeah. And so as we continue to grow this thing, as we continue to pour into each other, pour into us as well. So, man, love you guys.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
All that. Do the YouTube, TikTok. What's the other thing? Twitter, X. It's called X now.
I don't know.
all that. Do all the social stuff.
All right, man. We love y'all. We out.
Till next time, get busy.
Get busy. Peace.
Peace.
And God